Hey everyone, Matron here, bringing you another StarCraft 2 commentary. This time a game between Fayth, spawning as the red Protoss, and his opponent will be Rekatan, spawning as the blue Zerg. This is a ladder game, a PvZ on Xel'Naga Caverns, and it features some very interesting play from both players. I was able to preview this and picked out a lot of what I've seen from other players, from both of these players, and then some new unique things as well. And be interested to see what you guys think of them as we do get started here. Fayth is actually one of the honorary members of Root Gaming. They have him listed along with Root Bubba on their website as an honorary member. Checking out the APM, both players about 140. They're around 3,000 level masters, so pretty high level game ladder wise here as we get a delayed good luck and have fun from Rekatan. Never really heard of the Evo gaming team, but I imagine that there are going to be quite a few teams popping up here as StarCraft 2 reaches almost the 1 year mark, at least from when the beta came out. As we see a pretty early pool here coming from Rekatan. This is going to be an 11 pool, so throwing that down immediately after that, second Overlord does pop out. And we may see some early Lings, and Fayth coming in here, but I don't even think he's seen that pool yet. So he doesn't see anything going on right now. He knows that his opponent's probably at 14-15 drones, and this is about the standard time that a Zerg player would make that choice between pool first or hatchery. So Fayth waiting here, waiting for that drone to come out to place down the hatchery, but he's going to be in trouble if he doesn't react quickly to the spawning pool, which is about 80% complete. The extractor just now going up for Rekatan, so he won't have speedlings on the field quite so early, but he will have some early zerglings. We see him getting a queen down here, and this could help his economy in the early going. He's going to get an inject out a lot faster than most zergs do. So we see Fayth placing a second pylon at the front of the ramp there. So I'm not really sure how he plans to wall off both the cybernetics core and the gateway, going closer to his nexus, but he's going to have to do something here as zerglings will soon be on the field. The drone softening up that probe a little bit, and now that probe's going to have to skedaddle as two zerglings are hot on its heels. And we do not yet have speed coming out for Rekatan quite yet. The queen popping just now, so we will be able to begin that inject. On the Team Liquid forums, there was some discussion about how good an 11 pool and maybe an 18 or so hatch or a later hatchery would be in terms of economy, as you will be able to get your injects going a little bit earlier, having that queen out. And now it looks like Fayth placing down a number of pylons here to wall off, so he's going to be a little bit heavily invested in pylons that he doesn't quite need. He is 25 of 42 right now, so he could have spent the extra minerals on another gateway, perhaps to get out some early units. But I do kind of like this this sort of wall off. He's not going to have any important buildings or production structures here, so later in the game he could take out one of these pylons to really open up that ramp. We see a lot in PvZ. The Protoss player has difficulty dealing with muta pressure in his main when he does wall off with a gateway and a cybernetics core, because it's just such a small opening and he's not able to get his stalkers back up into his main. So with this sort of wall off, he can take out this middle pylon and open up just a little bit more room to traverse the field between his main and his natural. So we see Rekatan does have his natural up and running at this point. If we check the income tab though, it is 25 to 20 in favor of the Protoss, but Fayth doing a little bit of damage against these non-speedlings at the moment, really taking advantage of the fact that these zerglings are off of creep. And they do not yet have speed, as we see speed almost done 94% of the way there. So hopefully they're going to try to chase down and catch this stalker once speed does kick in. It looks like they may be searching for him, or perhaps going to go take back map control. Right now the Protoss players sort of grasped it away from the Zerg player. Anytime you get out a Ling force that early, you want to try to take map control. Force your Protoss player to be bottled up here as the Lings pick off a free probe, and it looks like more and more Lings coming out for the Zerg player right now. So not droning up very hard. He knows his opponent can't be too heavily invested in units. He sees his entire army here in just a few sentries, and now a lot more sentries coming out, and an early expand off of it looks like 3 gates, but these Zerglings are going to work on that nexus, try to put a little bit of pressure on it. And now I would definitely be droning up, since you see that your Protoss opponent is going for a little bit more of an econ game, getting out a number of pylons here to wall off even more. This is such a very impressive wall off. At any point here, he could really choke off with a force field, prevent the lings from coming in. If we check the zergling count, it is 13 right now, so keeping a healthy number of lings right outside the Protoss base, and it looks like 14 more lings on the way. So Rekatan maybe applying a lot of ling pressure here. It looks like he's getting a macro hatch as well. Anytime you see a macro hatch this early, before the Zerg player has really saturated that second base, you know it's going to be because he needs larva, and Zergling's very larva intensive. They're just so cheap. They really eat up larva quite a bit, so that macro hatch is going to be helpful as Rekatan just focusing on lings at the moment. He does not yet have a lair, so just running off hatch tech, and it looks like he is already researched the +1 attack for them. He's going to want to get the +1 armor as well. That way the zealots won't be able to two-shot them if Fayth ever does get that +1 upgrade for his zealots. And it looks like he's now moving across the field. He's got a lot of sentries here. They are light. They don't have very much HP. So these speedlings could be very good against them if he does not get off some good force fields. Just one stalker right now. So roaches would really eat this apart. But he's got a lot of lings and even more on the way. So he's got 36 lings, another 12 on the way. So soon he's going to have about 50 lings out. And Fayth thinking about moving across here, placing down a proxy. Fayth getting up, looks like 5 gateways right now, I think he's working off of. So this is sort of a 3-gate into expand for the Protoss player. He adds 2 more gates, and then as soon as his economy hits with this expansion, he's going to have all these probes just on minerals, and he's going to try to attack with a proxy in 5 gates. We see this from Minigun quite a bit. This used to be a standard PvZ. It looks like we've got action on 2 fronts now as Fayth moving into the Zerg base. At the same time, Rekatan trying to take down that Nexus. So it looks like these sentries doing their best to get up some good force fields, really limiting the surround possibilities for those Zerglings. A lot more Zerglings coming out for Rekatan. He really needed to take down these sentries. Now we have some late arriving Zerglings from the Protoss base. They're going to try to take down these sentries. Some very good force fields once again. The sentries and the zealots in those small combined spaces, so good against those Zerglings. But it looks like this might just be too many Zerglings. I don't think that Fayth has properly reinforced this attack. He's got a lot of zealots here that he really could have used. But it looks like Rekatan heavily invested in Zerglings now. Going to be doing a bit of a counter, perhaps just cleaning up these proxy pylons. He's gone ahead and taken his gold expansion, so a very early third, and he's just now getting his lair tech, transferring all of his drones perhaps over to this gold. So very interesting play so far, very Zergling centric, and now doing a full transfer to that gold base. So he wants to stay 1 base ahead of his opponent. If we check the income tab, it's 39 to 24 right now. So Rekatan using a lot of larva, a lot of minerals on those early Zerglings, hoping that they pay dividends. He was able to defend against that push, but now not able to do too much damage here. To see the Nexus doesn't have any HP damage done to it. And we see the Harvester count for Fayth very healthy, as a few Zerglings here are going to be taken down by those sentries. 43 to 24, so Rekatan really needs to start droning up here, as we see 5 drones coming out and a few more queens as well, hoping to keep the larva flowing. But he is on this gold base, so he's not too far behind his opponent compared to the number of drones he's actually behind. See Fayth now swapping over to a Stargate and getting down to a robotics facility at the same time. This is something we see from Root Kiwikaki quite a bit, getting out both those tech structures. It's going to give him with a lot of options, so he can go, depending on what lair tech his opponent is going for, he can try to scout that with this probe. He can get out an observer right quick as well, and then with both the Stargate and the robotics facility up, he's going to have a lot of options. Looks like the lair tech is actually going to be Spire for Rekatan. He is just mining off this 1 extractor back at his main base. I imagine he's going to want to get up that second geyser as well, as he's getting up just the second and a third, working off of 1 gas for the first 13 minutes here. So we always talk about Zerg being very starved for resources, as a Phoenix is going to come out and do a little bit of scouting here. I'm not even sure if it did see that Spire. It did not. So coming in here and now going to get a second glimpse of that, seeing that Spire. But it looks like Rekatan sort of playing this backwards. He's going very Zergling heavy in the early going, working off of very little gas, and just focusing on getting up expos here. Now saturating his expansion and his main a little bit as well, up to 49 harvesters. So with this gold, he is caught up to the Protoss player in economy. And if we check the army count, it is 57 Zerglings to the 11 Zealots, the 1 Void Ray, and the 7 Sentries. And neither player with quite a huge standing army at this point. Fayth adding more and more pylons. Looks like he will be getting down his third as well. Rekatan with a good placement there of that Zergling will know that this third is on the way for Fayth. And it looks like he's going to be swooping in here with his Zerglings. At this point doing, well, being quite fearsome with all these Zerglings. They can move across the Xel'Naga Caverns map so quickly. There are many avenues of attack into all the bases here. So Speedlings are very powerful. But at some point, you have to think that maybe they expire in effectiveness. We see that Fayth does have the +1 upgrade for those Zealots. So Rekatan has responded with the +1 armor as well. If we check the production tab, it looks like the Overlord speed is coming, so it's going to provide good scouting opportunities for Rekatan. He's also got a potpourri of units coming out, a drone, some Mutalisks, and it looks like he's psycapped himself a little bit here. So coming out with some Overlords. So it looks like he's going to go into a delayed Mutaling, really going off a lot of Lings here in the early going, and foregoing that lair for so long. He actually had up his gold before he even went for lair. And Fayth adding a lot of cannons here. We see Kiwikaki do this as well to his third. It's a little bit difficult to defend 3 bases. You want to make sure that your army is close to your natural and your main to defend the production structures. So adding photon cannons to the third, popular move for a lot of Protoss players. Not sure about all these cannons, but he wants to make sure that any Zerglings come in here are not going to be able to do too much economic damage. He knows his opponent does have that gold. He needs to secure that third, and he needs to get up and running shortly. We see 64 harvesters to 56. So far, the units lost have pretty even, 3,600 to 3,000. We saw Rekatan's lost a lot of Lings in the early going, but he actually basically shut down that early attack from Fayth. Fayth adding a few Void Rays here, along with a Colossus. So the Void Ray Colossus army, once it gets big enough, once it reaches that 200 point for Protoss, Artosis and Idra talked about it on their recent show of Imbalance, talking about how difficult it is to stop. As we see the Mutalisks pushing in here, hoping to get a little bit of information. There hasn't been much scouting done by Rekatan up to this point, and he actually is going to take down the pylon here, maybe, of Fayth, so actually providing Fayth a little bit of a benefit there. I talked about early that he's going to want to open that up to allow those Mutalisks or the Stalkers there to defend against those Mutalisks in the late game, and now that is quite opened up, a nice little pathway, and you see Fayth has actually produced quite a pathway here. At any point in this path he can throw down a force field and stop Zerglings if he does sort of lose contain, and it looks like I believe Rekatan has seen all those cannons there. We'll check his sight. He actually has. So backing away with all these Zerglings. Check him out there now, 2-1. He's got 112 Zerglings on the field with his 21 Mutalisks. We see Psionic Storm on the way for Fayth. So that's going to be good against both the Zerglings, who are very low HP. They're going to die almost the instant that Storm goes down, as well as the Mutalisks. If they do get bunched up, the Storm can do quite a bit of damage there as well. So I like the fact that Fayth is really countering this kind of delayed crazy army from Rekatan, really focusing on those Zerglings. Now it looks like he's going to be able to take down this Templar Archive before the Psionic Storm does finish. So that's really going to put Fayth behind, and I'm not sure that he's going to be able to deal with these Mutas and with the Mutas and the Lings here without that Psionic Storm. He doesn't have much right now. He's heavily invested in Zealots and Sentries, not the best against Mutalisks. He actually looks like in response to that Psionic Storm, not going to be able to complete here. Made those few Templar that he had created into Archons. They're going to be pretty decent doing splash damage. They have 2 upgrades, or 1 upgrade doing 39 damage to biological, which both Zerglings and Mutalisks are. It looks like Rekatan getting on a 4th now, and it looks like getting up Hive Tech. He's actually getting a few Banelings as well, actually more than a few, 24, 24 Banelings perhaps to take on the Zealots that he knows his opponent does have. So if he's able to take down those Zealots which are very good against the Zerglings. The Zerglings could then surround the Stalkers and the Sentries. We hardly ever see Banelings used as Zerg against Protoss. They're much more popular in the other matchups just because of how weak Marines are to them and Zerglings in the ZVZ matchup. And it looks like these Banelings are actually going to be loaded up in the Overlords here. So quite a few Overlords full of Banelings. Not really sure what Rekatan's going to do with those. He could perhaps drop into the main, take out some important production structures. Looks like he's going to continue to poke in here with those Mutalisks. And there's not much that Fayth can do right now. He doesn't have very many Stalkers. He's got a few Archons, but he's not able to get into his main or into his natural very easily just because of the positioning of his army. So Rekatan doing a nice job holding map control. He's got all the towers, really has his Protoss opponent bottled up here. He's got creep spread on the possible gold expansion of Fayth. Fayth having to get out an observer and try to clean off these creep tumors. And we see more and more Banelings coming, another 24 Rekatan, so perhaps going to be loaded up into these Overlords. And I will be very interested to see how he uses this army. He's got 111 Lings, 67 Banelings, 19 Mutas, 4 Queens, and a Partridge in a Pear Tree there against the Zealots, the Archons, the few Colossi, and few Templar of Fayth. Looks like Fayth now moving out, trying to take down this gold. It looks like Rekatan doing a nice job pulling those drones back. He makes sure that he's not going to lose any drones. Probably going to lose this hatchery. A little bit late to respond here. He's got all these Overlords coming in, trying to get a flank with these Zerglings. He's got the Mutas as well. And Fayth's got to see these Overlords and suspect something. He does have Storm finished. He's got enough energy. I'd start storming these Overlords. It looks like he's going to do just that. But with 200 HP, it's going to take 3 storms to take those down. Now Mutalisks coming in here along with the Zerglings. Nice force fields going down. Going to be denying the Zerglings there as they try to come through 2, 3 at a time. The storm's going down as well. The drops coming from Rekatan as he's trying to close the distance between these Overlords and the Protoss army. More and more drops coming out for Rekatan. He's got quite a few Banelings left as these Zerglings doing their best, working this Protoss group into a corner, and this Protoss army, so we see, totally gone now. Rekatan losing quite a bit of his own units there in Banelings. They're quite the throwaway unit. But 2950 now to 275. Fayth's got to get up and rolling with the macro army here. He's got quite a few gateways to work off of. It looks like 7 at this point. No, yeah, it's going to be 7. And he's also got to get this robotics and that starport working as well. He's got to get a standing army as we see 76 Lings on the way for Rekatan. So soon he's going to be overrunning his opponent as we see Fayth spending some extra minerals on a lot of photon cannons trying to protect this natural. The Mutalisks working in here with those 2-0 upgrades, going to be able to take down these Stalkers with that splash damage at this point. Just not enough Stalkers on the field. Really needs to get out a few of those Templar, but it looks like he does not have the amulet training quite yet, so they are not going to be able to storm on demand. Rekatan doing a nice job taking down or trying to take down this Templar archive once again. He was able to stop the Psionic Storm, really turn the game, and now he might be able to stop this the amulet. Fayth just on these 3 bases, trying to get up this 4th. We see a lot of Banelings coming in here, hoping to take on those Stalkers, not doing too much damage as the Stalkers are armored units. The Banelings doing bonus to light, but they were able to take down quite a few Stalkers compared to the size of his Mutaforce. So now it looks like a lot of Zerglings coming in here. There are 88 Zerglings on the field. He does have the Hive Tech, so he's not quite gotten the Zergling attack upgrade yet. If we check the production, it looks like the ground carapace level 3 along with attacks level 3 and the adrenal glands all about to finish. A few corruptors coming out as well. So the corruptor is going to be very good against any sort of Colossus play, as we see one coming out right now for Fayth. If we check the army tab, it is 3,500 to 1,900. Fayth quickly closing the distance between him and his opponent. But if we check the income tab, it is 83 to 63. But those 63 spread out over a number of bases. Fayth really needs to get this gold up and running. Rekatan knows that he needs to deny it if he's going to have an easy time in this late game here. He's already built up quite a lead with those nice Baneling drops, taking out his entire opponent's army. But Fayth doing a nice job macroing up here. The Zerg just not able to close the deal. And pretty close here on both army value and population count at this point. Just a few more minutes and Fayth is really going to be able to close the distance here, but we do have some Broodlords on the way for Rekatan. Looks like 3 on the way, and they're going to benefit from the melee upgrades that he's been working on for those Zerglings all game. Those Broodlings are going to be doing quite a bit of damage. So it looks like Fayth just trying to hold on to this Nexus here. He does have it up and running now, did a nice transfer, and he does have the income advantage, 1,600 to 1,000 per minute. We see that Rekatan trying to get up his 5th base here, and actually getting up his 6th as well, so double expanding a la machine. He's got quite a few queens here. Holy crap, he's got 1.5 rows of queens, so he's got 12 queens to go along with these Broodlords, a lot of Lings and the Mutas. So if he brings these queens along, he's going to be able to do a ton of transfuses on these Broodlords. See, the Broodlings have those 3/3 upgrades doing 7 damage per attack. They attack every 0.65 seconds. They stay up for 8 seconds, so that's close to 12 attacks. That's a lot of damage each individual Broodling is able to do. Once they close that distance with their opponent, they're able to do a ton of damage. I think that's vastly underrated, as Broodlord's very powerful in the late game here, especially against this lineup without any Void Rays out to keep them in check. They're able to take down the Stalkers very quickly, and the Zerglings kind of melting there to the Storms and the Zealot pressure from Fayth. But it looks like these Broodlords, Fayth has no answer for right now, doing his best to deny this expansion. Really needs to be warping in a ton of Stalkers, needs to get out a few Void Rays as well. Retreating back, if we check the army tab, still pretty even, 4,000 to 3,700, but I think that Fayth kind of on the run here, as Rekatan got up his 5th on the far right side. I do not believe that Fayth knows about this, and now he's doing his best to push in here. Another 10 mutas on the way. They do have the 2 attacks upgrade for the air units here, so Broodlord's doing 24 damage on the initial attack, and then like I said, those Broodlings doing so much damage as we see them just chewing through all these Stalkers and Zealots. A few Storms going down on the Broodlords, but look at these constant transfuses going off. These slow-moving Queens getting into the battle a little bit late. Perhaps if he has enough Templar on the field, he can get some good feedbacks on those Queens, taking them down. But right now they're just so valuable. Very nice feedbacks on the Mutas and Broodlords alike. I do not believe that any of these Broodlords have gone down yet, as we see transfuse after transfuse from Rekatan. Very impressive play here. Fayth gives the GG. And I thought this game was pretty interesting for a ZVP. Sort of played out a little bit differently on the side of both players. I liked Fayth's positioning of buildings, those pylons. He could have opened up the ramp there in the late game, giving himself a bit more access for his Stalkers to try to defend against those Mutalisks. And then he did a nice 3-gate expand into 5-gate pressure, which we see pretty often. It's a popular build in PvZ. And then Rekatan kind of played this one differently than I've ever seen a PvZ played. He went for a lot of early Zerglings, and he just sort of held map control. Anytime his opponent pushed out, he threatened with those Zerglings. We saw that when Fayth did push out with those 5 gates, Rekatan was able to attack with his Zerglings and then retreat in time to hold off Fayth's push, all while doing a little bit of damage himself with the Zerglings, and then just the entire game kept that Zergling count high. He got that quick gold. He did a full transfer from his main. He didn't have very many drones compared to his opponent, but he was able to keep up in the economy, adding base after base in the late game, eventually getting up to those Broodlords with the full upgrades, a lot of Queens, and then they're pretty much unstoppable compared to the unit comp that Fayth had. And then, oh man, I forgot, in that corner, all the Baneling drops on Fayth's army. He worked himself into a corner trying to use those force fields to keep those Zerglings at bay, but the Mutas and the Overlords dropping on top of that Protoss army was able to decimate it, and Rekatan, it was his game to lose from then on out, but he won it like a champ here with a very interesting playstyle. Pretty long macro game. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you want to check out more StarCraft 2 commentary, analysis, and action, make sure you check out my channel, Matron StarCraft, at youtube.com. If you're watching this on another site, they don't post quite a few of my games, so stay up to date, subscribe, check it out, comment, leave your opinions on the game and the commentary. Always appreciate it. Thanks for watching this one. Take care.